So, we're looking at the idea that crypto decoupling might have reached its end, right? With stocks really following Bitcoin's rally?
Yeah,
It's kind of
exactly.
wild how intertwined these markets have become.
Totally. It's like every time Bitcoin moves, the stock market kind of echoes it. How do you see that affecting the decoupling narrative?
Well, the whole decoupling idea was supposed to mark crypto as an independent asset class, distinct from equity behavior. But with major indices, say the S&P 500, moving closely with Bitcoin and altcoins over the last 10 days, it's really putting that theory to the test.
Yep, right. I mean, if they're moving so much in tandem, doesn't that challenge the whole idea that crypto is independent from global economic stuff?
Exactly, it brings up an interesting point. Even though crypto outperformed equities in recent months, like the total crypto market cap is up by 8.5% since March, while the S&P 500 declined by 5.3%. On a day-to-day basis, investors see them mimicking each
Mm-hmm,
other.
yeah. Right. So short-term movements suggest correlation, but long-term trends show divergence. It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's like saying you've got this sprinter who sometimes matches a marathon runner's pace. In the short term, they're aligned, but the overall endurance is
Yeah,
totally
that's a
different.
cool analogy. Okay, but what about the macro factors at play, like Federal Reserve liquidity plans and strong corporate earnings? How do they fit into the picture?
Great question. Despite some weak US manufacturing data and trade tensions, the Fed's potential move to inject more liquidity, especially through asset purchases after a period of balance sheet reduction, has actually been a supportive factor.
Yeah, that adds up. So basically, more liquidity tends to boost risk oriented assets, meaning both stocks and crypto could get a lift.
Exactly, even if crypto doesn't fully decouple, a more supportive macroeconomic backdrop benefits everyone. And speaking of earnings, companies like Microsoft and Meta, especially with reports of AI driven growth, are keeping investor confidence high despite trade
Right,
tensions.
totally. It's interesting though. There are trade war developments and tariffs, yet the market's holding up quite resiliently. Isn't that kind of counterintuitive?
Yes, it might seem counterintuitive at first, but consider that many companies have been adapting, like moving production out of China or shifting operations domestically, which has helped them weather
Mhm.
tariff
Makes sense.
impacts.
I suppose that adaptation builds confidence. But do you think this correlation between equities and crypto might eventually turn negative? Or could crypto forge its own path?
That's the $1 million question. In the short term, the correlation is elevated, possibly due to similar investor sentiment on liquidity and risk. But over a 6 month period, we see crypto's total market cap up 29%, while the S&P 500 is nearly flat. So, um, there definitely exists
Interesting
potential for
perspective.
crypto to break away.
But isn't it a bit risky to assume that crypto can completely decouple given these ongoing global economic factors?
I get your point, and you're right in questioning that. We have to stay cautious. A full decoupling would require crypto to show resilience even during asset sell offs triggered by, say, an economic slowdown or a global recession. It's not guaranteed.
True, true. Right. And another angle is the stock market's own struggles. I read that despite reaching peaks and then dropping back, there's speculation about a bottom forming around 4,035. How does that factor in?
Well, even though the S&P 500 hit a peak on February 19th and then brushed against that support level for months, investors are still optimistic, especially given strong Q1 earnings. And uh, if equities can stabilize, crypto might ride along, which blurs the desired
Mm-hmm,
independence.
exactly. That's kind of reassuring in a way, but also leaves a lingering uncertainty. It sounds like both markets are looking at a cautiously optimistic future, correct?
Yes, cautiously optimistic is the vibe here. With evolving trade narratives, like recent reports of US China trade negotiations and selective tariff exemptions, it's like both markets are in a delicate dance, trying to maintain momentum amid
Yeah,
uncertainties.
I can see that. Gone are the days when crypto was seen as completely isolated from traditional assets, huh?
Absolutely. The idea of crypto as a haven asset definitely took a hit when it started shadowing stocks, especially in day-to-day moves. But remember, over the long term, we still see significant performance differences, so there's a nuanced picture here.
Right? It's not black and white. I imagine this will spark debate over whether holding crypto is truly a diversification strategy anymore.
Definitely. And that debate is quite healthy for the market analysis community. Some argue it's still diversification because crypto can outperform in bullish phases, whereas others critique that tight coupling means similar risks.
Yeah, it's a fair challenge. Interesting you mentioned that. Do you think there's a point where one can really claim that crypto is its own market, independent of stock market mood swings?
It would likely require crypto to show distinct reaction patterns during market stress events. Right now, with Fed policies boosting liquidity, both assets tend to swing in similar ways. So, as of now, it's hard to pin down a clear independent behavior in the short run.
Definitely. I wonder if upcoming developments like changes in Fed policy or new disruptive technologies could potentially alter that dynamic.
Absolutely, new technologies or shifts, maybe regulatory moves, could really tip the scales. It's a bit like waiting for that rainy day forecast to clear up the fog. Either way, the landscape could change rapidly.
Yeah, that's a solid point. So we're really in a transitional phase then. Not a clear decoupling, but also not a strict coupling either.
Right? It's almost a blend. Short-term correlation with potential long-term divergence, especially if macroeconomic factors force crypto to prove its uniqueness.
Right, I get that. It sure makes me wonder about the next steps for investors, whether they should view these assets as intertwined partners or as separate plays.
That's the million-dollar question for portfolio strategies. With crypto now showing some robust performance against equities over longer periods, savvy investors might hedge by capitalizing on both, but with a keen eye on those near-term correlations that could signal overall market sentiment.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. And the nuance here is that even if they're coupled now, over months or years, the underlying drivers could lead them on very different trajectories.
Right. It's like, um, you know, a relay race where each runner has their own speed. In the short sprints, they might run side by side, yet the finish line might tell a completely
Yeah, that's a
different
great
story.
analogy. One thing that I'm still a bit skeptical about is whether this close tracking might actually be temporary. What if market conditions shift abruptly?
I totally respect that skepticism. It's possible that this correlation is just a transient phase, spurred by an environment of high liquidity and investor sentiment shifting quickly with global news. Should conditions change drastically, like an economic downturn, both markets could decouple, but not necessarily in crypto's favor.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, in essence, while the current rally suggests a sort of coupling, investors have to stay vigilant because the inherent differences are still there.
Exactly. We're in a phase where the narrative is still evolving. It's like a suspenseful movie where the ending is not yet written. You keep watching and the scenes continuously redefine the stakes.
Right, I can definitely relate. Well, this discussion really underlines the complexities of today's market dynamics. It's not just a simple story of decoupling anymore.
No doubt about it. It's an exciting time for both investors and market analysts with plenty of turns ahead.
Absolutely exciting times indeed.